Here we are. How's everybody doing? I don't have the video yet with the music yet. I worked on it today, but there's a limited amount of power available during the day on cloudy days. It's sunny as can be right now, but I had to throttle everything down middle of the day. I was working on it, and because it got cloudy, and I wanted to make sure I had enough power for tonight, so I can either have it for power for the show, or I can have power earlier in the day. Hey, everybody! Glad to see everybody. Come on in, set a spell, type your name and whatnot, and a little greeting and where you are in the comment section. And hello, Scott. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Montana. Looks like we got a broad cross section showing up. Y'all come on in, say hi. So, yeah, it's a little warm. It's a little warm, not hot, not as bad as it was. It was worse during the 30-day challenge. I was watching. I was having to snag video for the intro video that I'm making with the music. And thank you, Pat, for the report. Hello, Andrews. And so I was having to watch a lot of the video from the challenge, and it was bad. It was bad, and I did not look good. It was bad. I can't even imagine now, looking back. The first 10 days was just absolutely, completely brutal. Hello, Ohio. So anyways, I'm glad you guys could be here. Another Montana here. Good to see you, Bill. Glad you guys could show up. So we got some things to talk about today, but we can, as always, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Today was a good day. I woke up, got some stuff done. I woke up at 3:30 like I do. I made protein French toast, which was good. And then I waited about an hour, so 5:30 I left and went to the gym. Here's the thing about the gym. You can decide if this is a metaphor about life or about life in America or what's going on or not. The rules of the gym are that you may not play music out loud. You have to have earbuds in. Every time I'm in that gym by myself and somebody comes in, they say, "Hey, you don't mind if I play some music, do you?" Every time. And the rules are really plain, and the rules make sense, right? You can't just have everybody playing their own music. Maybe I don't want to listen to music. I like it quiet, just like real life. I like it quiet. I don't listen to music very much. I love music. I could even be considered a connoisseur of some genres of music, but I don't even know what to say. So every time I'm in that gym, now a couple of times I've been there by myself the whole time, and it's great. But if I'm in there and I'm by myself and somebody else comes in, they go, "Hey, you don't mind if I play some music, do you?" First of all, I know we have a few lawyers in the audience. That's called leading the witness. That's not a question. That's leading the witness to the answer that you suppose ought to be the one that you're going to accept. Anyway, so that happened again today, this morning. "You don't mind if I listen to some music, do you?" A different camera. No, same camera. I did up the I don't know what they call it. Parts per million. I did up the visual thingy-mabob, and the lighting is a little bit. I'm messing with the lighting every time. I do have a different microphone on. Hello, Dave from Kentucky. Hello, Shemaine. Hello, Cynthia. Indiana's in the house. Miami's in the house. All right, good to see you guys. So I don't know if you want to take that as a metaphor for the age that we're in. I was in there yesterday, and I was about 90% done. And this old guy walks in, and he's like, "You don't mind if I put some music on, do you?" And I'm just kind of like, whatever. And so he puts on, it was some like goth version of "What a Wonderful World," the Louis Armstrong song. But the guy was screaming it. So he had it turned up. It wasn't real loud, but it was loud. So then I finished up and I went to the bathroom, got all my stuff ready to go. And as I was walking out, he had that thing cranked. So if you didn't get there before him, I guess you're just screwed. You're just going to listen to "What a Wonderful World" really, really loud. I've been switching my baseball team's lifting session over to classical. Oh, okay. So I guess you're a coach. And I guess Michigan somehow doesn't have like distancing rules. So you guys are like baseball practice. I'm having to put it all together, Daniel. So that's what I'm guessing happened. Resolution. That's what I was thinking. I did boost the resolution a little bit. And it could be that the internet's a little faster because they changed. And I have that darkening and lightening thing. And I don't know if it's just, I don't know what's causing that. One day, I went back, I said I was going through all the video, cutting, basically making a music video for the preamble, bumper music for this show. So I was going through a lot of video. And the very first one of these I did in the COVID era, I had the Samsung tablet right here on this bookshelf, and I was just talking into that. Things have changed a lot. And one day, this microphone will be like up under my shirt where you can't see it, and the sound will be crisp, and there'll be lighting back here, some mood lighting. I'll be able to just pull up stuff like bam, bam. Stuff will be popping over here. It's going to be nice. But it helped to wear some earbuds so it looks like you're listening to music yourself. Then when they ask the question, you can say, I've got my own. I did get some earbuds. I don't know that I'll put anything on, but if I can figure out how to just play white noise so I don't have to listen to the nonsense, that's probably what I'll do. High school baseball coach. I didn't know you were a baseball coach. See, there's something new I learned already. All right. So here we are. I wanted to talk a little bit today about post-apocalyptic books or apocalyptic books, whatever you want to, however you want to frame the genre. Meltdown, societal collapse books. I'm sure that with a audience as well read as this one, that you've probably read a lot of them. Maybe you've read a few of mine, and how those things track with reality. We can talk about it historically. And by the way, this is a conversation. This is not me giving a monologue. Dystopian, that's a good word. Dystopian can have a lot, a lot of dystopian I like is a futuristic alternative world, not a lot of it. So there's a lot of different categories of the genre. I'm basically talking about kind of meltdown scenarios. And I've mentioned a few on this show before that I've read that, and I'll tell you this up front, I have difficulty reading these books, not because there's anything wrong with the books. The books are fine, and I'm not criticizing authors who are not adept at that particular category of knowledge, because you don't have to have murdered somebody to write a murder mystery. And I am sure if somebody is out there who is a murder cop, the murder police, they probably can't read murder mysteries. They probably don't like cop procedural stories. I'm just guessing, maybe they do. I'm guessing, but they don't. And the reason why is because when you know enough about a topic and you know enough about specifically not only causal relations and all of those things, but you also know things about survival and human nature, how people behave. It's just difficult because so much of it is so unrealistic. And that's okay. It's fiction. Something being unrealistic is not disqualifying. So I don't want anybody to take what I'm saying as a criticism of authors who write in this genre, because they have to write what they know and they have to write things that people are going to want to read. So, if you have a favorite that you want to talk about or something, or a question or something like that, we can talk about that. Historically, And we've talked a little bit about the fall of Rome, the end of the Greek Empire. You know, a lot of people don't think of those things in apocalyptic terms or in societal collapse sort of terms. Daniel said he's reading the Henry and the Great Society book. Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking, but it's really good. It's really necessary. Anyways, we don't think of empire collapses really in apocalyptic terms, but it really is. In fact, it is should be the seedbed of most of that genre. Most of the empires that have risen and fallen, even in my own lifetime, but prior couple of hundred years before, are gone. And the average life expectancy of empires after the Roman Empire have been fairly short. Um, the French Empire, you could say, was an apocalyptic scenario. Hello, John. Um, all the way going back to the French Revolution, leading up to Napoleon and Napoleon's 100 Days, and all of those things were as apocalyptic as any book you've ever read, right? I mean, if you start off with tens of thousands of people being beheaded, and by the way, that's probably I'm not talking about the beheading. I'm talking about the situation in the French Revolution is the closest to what we have going on today. Um, and so, people don't think of that in terms because that's not too long before your lifetime. I mean, it's historically it's a blip, right? But you can imagine being a French farmer, um, somebody rural living in France, and what was going on. All of a sudden, when you can get news when a traveler comes through, or the pamphlets or things that were being handed out because everything was so political at the moment, and going into the French Revolution. Like I said, it's almost a carbon copy of what's going on now. It was a very slow apocalypse. And so watching the rise of the different groups and the stuff coming out of the capital, and then you have the execution of the king, and all of that stuff, and then all of a sudden you got one party coming to power and they're executing everybody, and people are being dragged in, but just based on who they knew being executed, and um, just and then an emperor comes to power, and then you have armies crisscrossing, all of your sons being taken, never seeing most of them again. 550,000 men marching towards Russia. I don't think you could really think of something more apocalyptic than that. 550,000 men, but a lot of them teenagers, 12, 13 years old, 14 years old. See what we got here. I've read The Giver and Never Let Me Go and The Handmaid's Tale. I've ordered several books. 1984, Station 11, It Can't Happen Here. All right, well, you're doing good. War Dog Heim says the slow apocalypse is the reality. Over 100 years or so, fiction always puts it happening in days or weeks, and they are able to travel huge distances in a flash. Yeah, well, it's one of the things we tried to deal with very specifically in Wick. And there's always new people on here, so let me. Oh, I can't reach it. There's a copy of Wick right there. All right, and with Wick, we tried to nail travel. So not only is the entire book a travelogue, but what travel would be like, even traveling very, very short distances. Hello, Nancy. Um, and so that's one of the really, really big things about the book, and some of the major scenes that take place and we also show that in The Last Pilgrims, which is a prequel, a sequel to Wick, is people trying to cross interstate highways after the collapse, and how the mass man uses the highways as a means of travel because they're not very smart, and setting up camps and all those type of things, and how difficult it would be to actually just get across the easement of an interstate highway in a situation like that. And so, you look at, we talk about the French Revolution, look at the Russian Revolution. Oh my gosh. And I've studied that in depth. So there was a long lead up to it. I recommended people read Fathers and Sons. There's a lot of Solzhenitsyn books you can read leading up to it, and Tolstoy as well. Solzhenitsyn's book, I think it's August 1914, and that series, the Red Wheel series, covers a lot of that. But you went from a mostly rural, somewhat aristocratic Western European style, very uh, educated, erudite people, spoke several languages. Russian was not the primary language of business or of the social classes. French was, and so, and then you get into World War One, and then you have this huge, massive death toll in World War One, leading up to the revolution, the huge the civil war between the Reds and the Whites, and then within 30 years, 30 to 60 million dead, maybe 100 million. The absolute destruction of the Ukraine, and so that's as apocalyptic in real life. And you don't really see these types of things portrayed in literature. We tried to do that with Wick. Wick is a doorstop of a book, and really goes through the slow rollout. Doesn't take place over hundreds of years, but the lead up to it, and then it's the sequel is The Last Pilgrims, which takes place 25 years later. So we can then talk about the Japanese Empire. Certainly that one ended apocalyptically. Almost all of these empires, the Ottoman Empire, ended in major wars and disruption, upheaval, and a completely overturning of what had gone before. And so, in literature, as Wardogheim was saying, you generally see some. Okay, here's one of the big things in apocalyptic literature, and that is you have a triggering event, which writers use. That's a writing prompt. That's a writing rule, right? You have a triggering event, and generally, you got your baddies and you got your goodies. You got your roving bands. You got your lone travelers. But the generally the baddies are not your neighbor, right? In literature, they're bikers or just whatever people think of when they think of bad. The biker gang is a worn out, stupid trope. Canticle for Leibowitz is really good. Very few of these books portray a situation where it's a slow unfolding of events that are ramping up over time, and that there's layers. So one thing looks like that's the thing, and then you find out the thing was not the thing, and then there's another thing, right? Which is what happens in real life. One of the tropes in apocalyptic literature is, or I guess a number of the tropes are the characters who are generally thrown together, who are almost always bringing to the table some either something, some skill, a doctor, a lawyer, or somebody. I didn't mean to say lawyer, a doctor, or somebody, a military person, or something like that, or someone who's bringing to the table a dark, hidden secret. You know, what was what was lost in the changeover from the Wick series as opposed to the Omelet? Not one word. Every bit of it is in there. All of it. It just looks like every empire from thousands forward is the destruction of the belief in God to the belief in secularism and humanism. It's certainly a pattern. Um, I think that, I have recommended people go through Francis Schaeffer's "How Then Should We Live," which is a historical review of history of the civilization, Christian civilization. So yeah, and that's certainly a pattern, that there's always a move towards more secularism and more humanism. I don't know that you could say that in every case. It certainly was the truth in the Russian into the Russian Empire. The Japanese Empire, while it um, was centered around emperor worship and animism and a few other beliefs, the religious aspect wasn't really that big of a part um, of it coming to an end. It came to an end because the rest of the world enforced it, and the rest of the world wasn't enforcing secular humanism on Japan. So it doesn't fit perfectly, but yeah, there's a general trend in that. Mutant zombie bikers, yeah. Okay, Nancy, I just totally missed that because I'm not able to interpret. And so, I just want to know what you guys think. As you're now, so we pivot over as we're watching things that are going on. Not at all saying that we're leading towards some apocalyptic future in that sense, um, in the sense of the scale of what we're talking about. Don't know. I don't get into that. I certainly think things are underfoot, or underway, afoot. I had a mixed metaphor. Um, but I don't know. I don't know whether we're going to have another respite. It seems like in the past that things started gaining a certain amount of gravity, and then it goes on decade or so. So I'm just wondering what you guys think, and that's really what the conversation I want to have in light of the literature that you've read, Alas Babylon, um, things like that. Some of the books that I read early on in college, War Day was one of them by Whitley Strieber. Um, no cuts were made in going to the omnibus. Every word's there. No cuts were made in Pennsylvania. Every word is there. There were cuts going from Pennsylvania to the script, certainly, but no, there's no cuts. And the omnibus are the full and complete collection of the parts in both of those novels. So Whitley Strieber wrote War Day, and he wrote another one called Nature's End, and I think that's before he went kind of nuts. In comparison of Russia's fall versus Japan's fall might be an interesting discussion in terms of the scale, size. Okay, you got an extra N in there, of the two countries. Yeah, and they actually overlap. There was a war between Japan and Russia that in fact, caused the fall of the Tsar. So yeah, it would be an interesting discussion. Geographically speaking, because Japan's empire had grown and encompassed much of China and a lot of the world, Russia's always going to be the biggest dog in any fight as far as it just land geographically. Most of the Russian Revolution and the Russian um, Civil War took place in Western Russia because it's the part where the people are. But yeah, it's interesting to note that that was really one of the beginnings of the rise of the Japanese Empire, and that was the end of the Russian Empire. Was a war between Russia and Japan that led to the fall of the Tsar. So, like I said, I'm curious about what you guys think, or do you think? Yeah, hit the like button, everybody. We got 24 viewers and 8 likes. We need to get those likes. I'm gonna do this. This is the way to do it. I got to use all the new toys. Where's the like button toy? I did. I thought I had a like button toy. There it is. I changed the words. We should all gently hammer the like button. A lot of people are watching on Facebook. You can like it there. And I would invite you all at some point after you're done watching this, enjoy it wherever you are. If you would slide on over to YouTube, go to my channel, youtube.com/bunkdad, and pull up this video and like it and subscribe to my channel. And I'm telling you that because we didn't have a show yesterday. On the days when I have a show, I lose like 2, 3, 4 subscribers because I'm always pissing somebody off. Always. Oh, and I expect that. On the days when I don't have a show, it kind of heals. So I get a couple of people that subscribe. So if you would go subscribe, that would be great. Gently hammer the like button. Subscribe. You guys like my new toys? I meant to put this one down there. And so I'm real curious about what you think. How many people have looked at, I'm speaking of you, have looked at what's going on in the world right now in those terms, in the terms of the different areas, and we've talked about it here on the show, the different areas of escalation. Do you like my big blue head? I need to do a green one, and then people could like project, because it'd be like a green screen. People could like Photoshop stuff on my head. You probably could do it with blue. I'm not telling anybody to do that. In fact, don't project things on my head, but just saying. And so I'm curious how many of you have thought about this current crisis in those terms. It just seems that we're getting close to a communist totalitarian country subjectively and no more objectively. It seems more brazen now. It seems like freedom was just in name now. That's true. Freedom is certainly just in name now. I mean, but we've seen that coming for a long time. Nothing really has changed. It's just become more shrill. The anti-freedom people were running the homeowners associations. They were running local governments. They're running them now. They were the people saying you can't catch water and you can't have solar power in Florida because we are all part of the community. And if you're not paying your electric bill, then it's going to cause everybody else's to go up. And we're all part of the same society. And so those kind of things have been going on for in increasing way for a long time. We're just seeing it become more and more shrill. The road was rather grim and possibly more realistic. I just could not get into it. I read the book. I didn't watch the movie just because it was just so dark, and I didn't find anything redeeming in it. Wick is pretty dark, but there are redeeming characters. And there are in real life too. Real life is dark, but there are redeeming characters. Every once in a while, you meet one or some situation, and you're like, all right. Not that I have any hope in humanity in itself. I'm just saying it sure makes it more pleasant to spend the time whiling away the apocalypse or an apocalyptic book if there's some redeeming character or something that's hopeful. Definitely a lot of issues going on with supply chains. Yeah, I don't even think we've begun to see the beginning of that. From what I'm hearing from people, we're we're running on duct tape and baling wire as far as the supply chains. I think that with today's social distancing, other mandates and restrictions, that it is a form of social conditioning, certainly. That conditioning could lead to something that is akin to a dystopian society. Oh, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And it depends on how much of that they try to keep, because the fact is, once they've done it, once the precedent is set, you don't, you can't unclimb that rope. You know, you don't get to go back and go, okay, well, we're not doing that anymore. I mean, you can, and I invite people to say no. But as a society, very rarely do you unclimb that rope. Then a lot of study on the Third Reich came into being. Yeah, yeah. Given your past writings with aspects of technology, do you think that the current state of technology makes the current situation harder to predict? Or is that, no, I think it is an issue. It does make it harder to predict. I think it makes the end highly predictable. And there's quite a few books that I would recommend. Um, there's a guy named Lewis Mumford, and some of you may have heard me talk about Lewis Mumford before. I'm going to get my book is a little dusty. When I touch a book and it's dusty, then I feel like I need to dust it before I hold it up. He wrote a lot of books, but this is one of them. It's called The City and History. Fascinating. One of the best books I've ever read. He also wrote a book about highways. He wrote a lot of books about technology. This was the guy, Lewis Mumford, from the late 1920s through the 1930s and 40s, when our current technic society was being formed. It's that young. When they were devising the interstate highway system, if you can think back to the World's Fairs about that time in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, the World's Fair was a exposition of what futurists thought the world was going to be. So everything that you took for granted, and some stuff that's already passed away, like suburbs, clover leaves. Thank you, Dave, for the super chat. Absolutely appreciate it. Keeps us going. Suburbs, clover leaves, walking malls, green belts, all of these things, and even uh, uh, shopping centers. These were dreams. These were dreams these futurists had about the design of cities. And that's what this book is about. And how they believed that those things would develop. And this guy, being intelligent and honest, later on in life came to realize there's an inevitable end. Technical society, and don't get me wrong, I'm sitting here on YouTube. I'm living off grid. I'm being powered by a battery. I have a light shining on me. So it's just part of the modern mind that is so bifurcated and shattered that they can't have, as I mentioned on Facebook a little while ago, you can't disagree with the conclusion and then not agree with everything else, you know. And so they don't believe it's possible that I'm allowed to comment on technical society if I'm not absolutely completely drenched in it. Or why are you using it if you think it's bad? Because their mind is so freaking shallow, they can't conceive of anything deeper than the quarter of an inch of dew that they're wading through. And so here's the thing. If you examine technical society, and I'm going to tell you how these nut cases get past what I'm talking about. Inevitably, technical society must lead to the surrender of individuality and the surrender of any concept of individual rights. Absolutely. It just depends on how far you go down that road. It also must end in destruction. The way that nutcases get around that is they have a quantum leap theory that something unthought of is going to manifest itself, that's going to transform the society, that's going to allow us to keep those technical advances, but everybody's still going to have their freedom. Everybody's still going to have individuality. Those same people preach an individuality that is completely subject to the tyranny of the mass man. In other words, they preach against shame in general, shaming anybody. Shame is bad. But what mechanism do they use to stifle and destroy it? Right? So they preach an individuality that is a submissive, subservient, absolutely um, uh, lifeless individuality. It doesn't exist. It's vapor, and that's the way they get around things. So when you read some of these people's books, there's always something that arises that allows all of the techniques to advance without any ramifications, without natural ramifications. Was the whole American life just a human experiment to the people in power? No, and don't go down that road. You're giving evil too much power. Nothing, period, happens, and this is my view and it's my show, happens without God's uh, consent. They can do nothing. No, they react just like anybody else. They are individuals. They're not all working together. There are cabals, there are conspiracies, there are groups trying to accomplish things. They have no more idea than anybody else whether they're going to succeed. They just use criminal means to their ends. But don't give them too much power, because they don't have any. They don't have any more agency than you do. Uh, you may sit there and think, what can I do to feed my family, to provide for myself and my neighbor or whatever else? Their thoughts are like, what can we do to get everybody to do what we want so that we can have the things that we want? But they have no more power to bring those things to pass than anybody else. Those things must pass through the hands of God, who permits them through his permissive will to bring about his ultimate ends. That's my little speech for the day. No, I didn't say there's no Illuminati. I'm just saying they don't have the power that people think they do. They're not as cohesive. They're not. If once you go down that road, that they're so awesomely powerful that every single thing that any whack job anywhere could ever conceive of and find bits and pieces of evidence and then draw a conclusion and then put them all in a book, that all those things, then you're saying those people have godlike powers, and they don't. And I don't want to get into the whole satanic thing and all that kind of stuff, guys. You guys are getting me way off the beaten path here. The point is that they have no more agency than you do. They have no more agency than you do. All they can do is work with what they have. God permits it or doesn't permit it as it fits into his overall will. And so, I just don't, I cannot, I've been down that road. I spent 10 years in the conspiracy milieu, and it's just here be dragons, man. There's just too much, and you will actually get to the point where you become so cynical and so jaded and crazy. That's when you end up putting stickers all over your van and standing out with a sign and about reptilians and stuff. Just don't go down that road. Iron law, everyone has an agenda of their own, even those within cohesive groups. That's true. And people with contradictory agendas can both be evil. People with cohesive agendas can both be evil. Things that could have never happened in a million years happen. Things that should have happened, absolutely. Statistically, Hillary Clinton winning, don't get into politics. I'm talking about a historical event. Doesn't happen. Um, it, it, and then you got to create a new thing where you're like, well, the reason she lost was, you know, I just don't get into all that kind of stuff. And so here's the thing: there is a pattern to history. You got to go take all the stickers off your fan. There is a pattern to history. History, as I don't know, Mark Twain or somebody said, does not repeat, but it does rhyme. And you can see certain things are inevitable. And so I want to get back to my point. The technical society, however beneficial it is in any specific instance or any macro instance, must absolutely lead to death and destruction and a reset to where that technology no longer exists. It's inevitable. It's one of the themes of Futurity, my long awaited novel, which is so long now it may become 5 novels. Only thing it's cool to shame anymore in our society is pedophilia. No, I disagree. You can shame people for shaming people. You can shame Adele for losing weight. As long as you're on the right political side of the bullhorns, you can shame people for everything and anything, and that's absolutely okay. Their mechanism of ending shame is shame, right? If somebody says, "Listen, and I got to be careful because I just lost 101 pounds. I am healthier now that I am thinner. I could get hit by a car tomorrow, but I feel better. I'm stronger and I'm healthier." That is hate speech because body positivity says that I'm shaming people who fall on the other side of whatever I'm saying. What they're not saying is that body positivity, apparently, according to them, does not apply to thin people. You're not allowed to be positive about it. Yeah. How would one survive without power or with minimal food or poor water supply or tech and sometimes all of that together? I'm sure you're not asking me that question. I wrote a whole book about it. uh, that probably applied to something that I said. And so, going back to what I wanted to talk about, I was leading into Lewis Mumford. Lewis Mumford took his positions. He was the one that designed a lot of what we consider today to be the modern city. And they were all his fantasies of how things could work and would work well. A lot of the history of the 20th century is because of Lewis Mumford, who later in life, before his death, reconsidered all of it and realized that the end of all of that was going to be despair, disconnection, depression, destruction, uh, dissonance. The human mind so fragmented by all the shards being pulled and broken into different pieces so that it can deal with the society the way that it is. You don't even realize the trauma that takes place in the brain when you are raised. Pardon me, I got tangled up. When you are raised with a certain worldview, and it is the popular worldview of the world, and then on a dime, a small minority, like what happened with the Bolsheviks, in Russia flips it on its head. Everything you ever believed was good is now said to be bad. Everything that you believed white is now black. Everything that was dark is now light. Every single thing you believe has been turned upside down. You can see the light that is coming through this window that's the next bookshelf. We need to put a bookshelf right there. I have tree limbs on me. You understand? There's a mental trauma. The alternative for human sanity and reason is a reasoned separation and departure from the overall flow of the technical society. Doesn't mean you don't make use of things. I got a step counter, right? You have to think about things and you have to do things deliberately. But if you know inevitably, thank you, War Dog Heim, for that. I appreciate the super chat. Thank you all. If you know that inevitably, maybe not in your life, maybe in your life, but maybe in the next your children's lives, or but certainly by your grandchildren's lives, the superstructure that's been built that is hovering on nothing, built on nothing, is literally built on vapor, is going to come crashing down, then what do? Well, you have to make plans for that. There's a group that was put together. I snuck in under the door. Because of the success of my book, Pennsylvania, I got an invitation to this. I don't even know what you call it, some kind of New World Order. It's a group of people who are science worshiper kind of people who think that they're going to escape the inevitable. They know it's inevitable. Their entire theme is Noah's Ark. These are not Christians or religious people. These are irreligious people. I don't mean they have a religion, but their religion is science. And they have thousands of scientists, thousands of people in all different areas of life. They have prepared seed banks for growing things and actually they have think tanks that are working through how to, in a very Randian Atlas Shrugged kind of way, how do we get all of these people who are experts on all these things and save them from what's going to happen, because they know it's going to happen. So I got an invitation into this thing because I'm an author and because I write sci-fi and it's a futuristic kind of group. And I just thought it'd be fun to sit in and listen. We don't have meetings. I've never been to a meeting. You just get an email every once in a while. They have news and stuff. And they're going to kick me out probably after that. I don't care. But the two things to take from that is they know that it's inevitable. The people that are the most into the computers and the science and all that kind of stuff. And they're building an escape pod, metaphorically or physically or whatever it is. Just think of all the views of everybody that you know that's in that camp. All of them think we're going to have interstellar travel. That's going to be the escape, right? We're going to have faster than, turbo, whatever space travel. We're going to be able to go millions of light years like that. And we're going to find an Earth-like place. Most science fiction is based on this, right? But that's logically and realistically, it can't happen. I'm not saying that some parts of it could happen. Let me boil it down. The whole idea of going to Mars. People can't live on Mars. And I'm not just a stupid person sitting here going, oh, no, they're never going to invent technology. Yeah. They could probably have it in the next year or two where they got a big, huge stinking bubble like the biosphere and people can go in there and live. Here's what's wrong with that. We live in a biosphere that's a bubble in space that they said is broken and can't be fixed. We already have one. They said it's broken. They said it's going to end in 12 years. So they're going to go to a place that doesn't have a bubble, and they're going to make a bubble. And then they're going to stuff a bunch of people in there. And the difference is, in 1642, if I was on a boat with you and we ended up in the New World and we got in a fight and we didn't agree, you or I could hike off into the woods. You probably would die anyway, but you could try it. It could work. Maybe you and your wife, a couple of neighbors, you go start your own colony. Maybe it works. It happened. That's what happened with Maryland, Connecticut. You know, there was places you could go. You can't leave a Mars colony that's a bubble. And somebody is going to break stuff. They break stuff here. If we broke the whole world, according to them, you're telling me someone's not going to break a bubble on Mars? But see, they have so much faith that all of a sudden everybody's going to agree. Everybody's going to get along. Nobody's going to try to break away. Nobody's going to start their own thing. Here's the thing people don't get about Mars and the whole idea of colonizing Mars. It would have to be the most powerful tyranny in the history of the world to make it work. It could work. Hitler could make it work. But you would have to have absolute iron power to make it work. You can't have your own thing going up there. You can't go up there and go, you know what, I'm just not going to do any of that stuff. If everybody's got to pedal a bike like in Black Mirror to power everything up there, you can't just be the guy going, nope, not pedaling a bike. Everybody up there is going to be for the death penalty. Because if you're the guy that's like, I want to poke a hole in this bubble, and as long as I'm a free man, I'm going to poke a hole in that bubble, they're going to have to kill you or you're going to kill everybody else. That's how people never think about this stuff. But I'm using this as a metaphor of the fact that this is where we are. You get so far in the technical society, and when a 12-year-old has a computer and can design a nuclear weapon, but he doesn't even need one because new science can create other weapons that are undetectable that could kill everybody. When we are within, I don't know, days, weeks of having technology where they can replicate me and do a video and it looks just like this, uses all the same mannerisms, and you can't tell the difference. The technology gets to a certain point, and this is one thing Lewis Mumford figured out, where it becomes destructive, and to that end must implode, must come apart. And then there's a reset. I mentioned the fact that the Roman Empire ended that way. It was a highly technical society. Had things you can't even imagine. And I talk about them in my book, Surviving Off-Grid, but you can't even imagine them. They had sliding doors. They had glass. They had air conditioning. And 100 years later, there was a reset. Nobody even knew how that technology came. People still think that all this technology came from aliens because they can't figure out that the societies before them were actually more technically advanced than they are. So that's what we're talking about today. Hey guys, I'm getting down to the last 6 minutes. So if you guys have anything you want to talk about, anything like that, you got to kick it in here real fast. Thanks, both of you, for the super chats. Those are always very, very helpful. They keep this thing afloat. We're still trying to dig our way out of last month in a $819 car repair bill that we were not expecting. So I've had this scroller down here. So far, we've had 3 people and a total of like $35 towards what we need. We need 10 people, $10. So $100 a month. If we could get that pledge through patronage, there's two ways you can do it: through Patreon. You can do it through, go to michaelbunker.com, go to the support page, support Michael page, click on it, go to direct donation, and it lets you set up a monthly thing. Go do that. And if we can get 10 people to do $10 a month, then it'll pay for the $50 a month I'm paying for what you're looking at, plus some other plugins and stuff that I need and lighting and all that. Yep, they get caught in their own traps. Instead of get off my lawn, it'll be shove them out the airlock. That's right. Yeah, futurity, a big part of futurity is the fact that the technological societies before us were much more advanced. Hey, y'all, I got to go. I appreciate y'all being here as always. Hit the like button, subscribe. Come back next time we have one of these. Tell other people about it. Share the videos and go donate and do whatnot if you can. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I love you. And Lord willing, I'll see you next time.